Hello and welcome to part 2 of the DaVinci Resolve Conforming series. In this video we're going to be conforming a sequence from an EDL file and we're going to be preparing it for the grade. Before we get started, I just want to give a huge shout out to my 3 patrons, Francesca, Al and Andre. Thank you so much for supporting me guys, I really do appreciate it. Let's get into it. So we've just opened up a brand new sequence in DaVinci Resolve and we need to prepare a sequence for grading. Go up to DaVinci Resolve Preferences, into our user and into our color tab, and just make sure that our automatically queue 9,999 frames, which is the max, is set here. I will explain why we do this later, but it's a really useful tip for conforming. So now that we're set up, we've got our media storage on the top left and our media pool down the bottom. So in our media pool, we're just going to create some folders to prepare for the assets we're going to drop in. So we're going to create the media folder, a sequences folder, and an offline folder. We're going to go ahead and click the DaVinci Resolve Conform Tutorial folder. This Conform Tutorial folder and all of these assets are available to download for free in the YouTube description below. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and do that. We're going to double click the media, and you can see here that this is all of our media for this project. So we're going to left click and shift click and drag all of these guys into the media folder. So after we've imported our media, what we can do is import our EDL. So EDLs are metadata file that will help us build our timeline. To do this, I can head up to the File menu, Import, Import Timeline. And you can see that the shortcut key for this is Control-Shift-I. So I'm going to click out of here and hit Control-Shift-I. You can see that it jumps us to the Edit tab, and it'll allow you to pick your EDL. You can see that our EDL is here in our Conform Tutorial folder. I'm going to go ahead and hit Open. Now it's pointing towards the EDL file, which is great, and it gives us the option to change the timeline name. This will be what your sequence is called in DaVinci Resolve. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this to grade 1. It doesn't matter what this is your personal preference. Also here we have the master timeline start timecode. We'll leave this at 1 hour, but we might need to tweak this as we go forward. And I'm not going to mess with any of the other settings. We can see that it's 25 FPS, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So DaVinci Resolve is now asking us where to locate the media to build this EDL, and this mirrors the folder structure that we created in the media pool. There's no media in the sequences and offline bins yet, we just created them, they're completely blank, but if we want we can deselect them. Go ahead, hit OK. So you can see that has imported a timeline of shots. That's a good start, and you can see that we now have a sequence in our media pool. So we're going to jump back to the media tab, and we're going to drag this sequence into the sequences bin. So now that's living there, nice and tidy. So we have our sequence. What's next? In order of importance, we need to sync check the sequence and make sure that everything is matching frame for frame from editorial. So we need to import the offline reference file for that. We need to make sure that these clips are in the right color space. And optionally, if we want, we can import the audio for the sequence as well. So to do all that, let's jump back to the media tab and jump back up to our root of our folder here. This is our offline reference. If I click this, this is the finished cut from editorial, and it has the music. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click this sequence, and I'm going to extract audio. This is a very useful trick. I'm going to go ahead and put this into list view. So it has extracted the audio from this clip and created a separate audio file. This is very useful for a broad range of applications, not just conforming. I'm going to go ahead to our offline folder. Okay, now the next step is to bring this into Resolve as an offline reference movie. Now this is different to just drag and dropping. We're not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We're going to right click our movie file. We're going to add as offline reference clip. You can see here that this icon is slightly different in comparison to standard media clips. This is a special type of clip that we can link to a sequence in order to sync check our movies effectively. I can go ahead to my sequences bin, click on our sequence, right click, timelines, link offline reference clip. So here you can see all of the available offline reference clips, which in our case is just this one, and we're going to go ahead and click this. So let's go ahead and jump to our edit tab. We're going to open up our media pool window, go to our offline, and just click and drag our audio into the sequence. Before we get into the most important thing, which is our sync check, we're just going to quickly jump to the color tab to make sure that our color space is sitting roughly in the right place. I like to do this before the sync check because it enables me to flag any big color issues while I'm doing my sync check. So to set our color space, I'm going to jump to the Open Effects. I'm going to search Transform, and And you can see that we have a color space transform option. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag that onto my first node. And now you can see we have a color space transform option here. So this was shot on my Sony camera. So we're going to go ahead and put the input color space as Sony S-Gamut 3.cine. That's the option I chose on set. You can see our color changes here. And for the input gamma, I'm going to go ahead and change that to S-Log 3, which is again the gamma that I chose on my camera on set. And now you can see that our image is looking a lot healthier. Now I'm going to leave the output color space and gamma, because if we jump to our project settings and our color management, you can see that our timeline color space is set to Rec 709, gamma 2.4. The output color space and gamma here are being referenced in this timeline color space, and this is the correct output color space for this project. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. I'm going to leave the tone mapping and the advanced settings for now. I'm going to jump out of the Open Effects tab and open up my clips. This will give me thumbnail views of every shot in my sequence. I'm going to go ahead and left click and then shift left click the last clip to select all, and middle mouse button my first clip to copy this grade across to all of my clips. Cool, all of my clips are looking fairly healthy and a good starting point for sync checking. I'm going to close my clips and jump back to the edit tab using Shift 4. I'm going to hit Shift Z to fill my timeline, and let's run through our checklist. So we have our audio done, we have our color space done. So the next thing on our list is our sync check. Let's actually jump back to the color tab and I'll show you how I sync check. When I sync check, I like to check the first frame, the last frame, and the middle frame to make sure that everything's in sync. The shortcut to jump to the first frame is :semicolon. The hotkey to jump to the last frame is the quotation mark key, and the shortcut to jump to the middle frame is set here in the preferences user color. We've made sure to set this at its maximum value, which means whenever we try and cue the next clip, it will default to its midpoint. So let's see that in action. If I hit the down arrow, cursor will now default to the middle of the clip, not the first frame. If I hit the up arrow, it also defaults to the middle. Okay, so we know how to jump to the first, middle, and last frame, but how do we check back against our offline reference? Well, if you right click in the image viewer here and go reference mode, make sure that your reference mode is changed from gallery to offline, and then we're going to go ahead and hit show reference wipe. Okay, you can click and drag on the screen here to wipe the offline against the online, and you can change the mode here to have all of these different viewing options. The shortcut key to toggle this mode on and off is Control-W. So with these hotkeys, we're going to go ahead and sync check our sequence. So starting on our first frame, we'll hit Control-W once and off. You can see that that matches perfectly. We're going to jump to the last frame with the quotation mark key. Control-W, Control-W, matches perfectly. And we're going to hit the down arrow, up arrow to get to the middle of our shot here. And we're going to hit Control-W, Control-W. So that matches perfectly. So I'm confident that this shot is entirely in sync and matches our editorial offline reference clip. We're going to jump along to the next clip with the down arrow key to jump to the middle of the shot. Control-W, Control-W, :semicolon, Control-W, Control-W, and quotation mark key, Control-W, Control-W. You get the gist. Okay, so we're going to continue on here. Control-W, Control-W. Oh, and you can see we've stumbled upon our first editorial difference. So you can see in our offline reference that our clip has been flipped. So we're going to go ahead and jump to the edit tab. We're going to click our clip here and hit Control-W to get our reference wipe up on the screen as well. We're going to need to flop this shot. So we're going to go ahead and do that using this left-hand button here. And now if we hit Control-W, you can see that this matches again. So hitting the colon key and the quotation mark key, you can see that now this matches perfectly. That's our first fix in our sync check pass. Okay guys, so I've shown you the essential tools that you'll need in order to conform an EDL sequence in Resolve. If you want to see me conform this full sequence, I've released a slightly longer version on my Patreon. It's in the link in the description below. Just remember, when you're sync checking, it's important to make sure that your color space is correct, you have audio reference in your timeline, and that everything has been sync checked to an offline reference movie. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.